Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special Regen Meeting Board of Directors workshop. It is 9:21 on February 10th, so I'll call this meeting to order. So I have a roll call, please.
Chair Shirley,
Here.
Vice Chair Delgado, Dr. Blackwelder,
Here.
Dr. Askew,
Here.
Dr. Barber, Dr. Garcia Arzola, Dr. McKee,
Here.
Dr. Fedori,
Here.
Dr. Byrne.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll open it up for public comments. Anyone wishing to make the address of the board on matters not appearing on the agenda, may do so now. Here in the boardroom or online.
I show none online.
All right, I'll close public comments and we'll begin the workshop with an introduction and key takeaways.
Chair, morning community, thank you for everybody for attending our workshop today. I'd like to start off by acknowledging and thanking the staff for the work, the participation in putting this workshop together. We started back in December. We had to alter, we had to edit, we had to rework. We're hoping that all that becomes the best outcome for this workshop. I want to thank the organizational workforce for all its contributions to recognize the change and improvement in our operations with initiatives that makes us one of the most advanced landfill and recycling operations in North America. I want to thank the elected officials that are here today. They make time today, they make time once a month to come and help us make some pretty significant decisions for our community. And we thank them for their contributions to our organization. I want to introduce Dale Byrne, our newest member, our director from the city of Carmel by the Sea, and Director Chaps Fedori from City of Pacific Grove. Welcome to our Regen board. We have 3 topics that we're going to be covering today. I really want to start with some key takeaways and some focus points for our agenda today. 2036 Greenways San Jose contract expired in 2036. How do we bridge that revenue gap in revenue when 2036 arrives? Do we want to be independent of significant contracts, or do we want to be dependent of those significant contracts? And then some work that's going to lie ahead of this meeting is updating the guiding principles and the document on guiding principles of accepting waste. So that's really what we're here for today. We're going to introduce a lot of information today, and I really don't want to get caught up in some of the detail. But if detail interests you, I may recommend that we have a one-on-one with our finance team or our ops team to get into a little bit more detail where some curiosity may lie. On the legacy issues and future capital projects, portion of the presentation will show that decisions related to legacy and capital projects depend heavily on Regen's philosophy when it comes to financial independence. Does Regen need to find new markets? Does Regen need to find new customers? Does Regen want to continue with the expectation that we just keep up with the San Jose contract or other large regional agreements to fulfill its place? Is there an urgency in acquiring real property? And the question is asked mainly to be able to protect the existing assets and try to achieve 100% of the landfill usage. The plan for the year of 2036 will give Regen direction on how and when we make investments. We can make a difference if we start our path now. Our landfill life will be impacted by the path we choose. When we get to the financials positions, and again, the financials demonstrated are for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2024. Regen's financial position is currently strong. Regen support departments are funded by major revenue sources in the organization. The financial position relies on the contract Regen has with San Jose 2036 Greenways contract. As we look into the future, Regen can decide to continue with running this model and be in a challenging bargaining position in 2036. If that proves the case, why wait till 2036 to renegotiate external contracts? Or we can make a systematic change to the revenue philosophy that makes Regen more independent and puts us in a better and a stronger bargaining position in 2036. Finally, our department highlights from 2022 to 2024. This section of the presentation will showcase how Regen is the best solid waste and recycling facility in the country with numerous wins under our belt in just the past few years. Regen continues to press forward with engagement, stewardship, innovation, to do more, to waste less. And Regen has achieved this level of a facility because of the guiding principles put forward by past board of directors. Today's board and Regen's board of directors is now tasked with proactively defining the guiding principle for the next 10 years. With an understanding of the 2036 horizon and what that means for the organization's level of service and financial future. So that's essentially a recap of where our interests are at in today's participation of our board introduction. And you'll see me go back to key takeaways, and you'll see me go back to these fundamental reasons why we're here today. At this time, I'd like to get the presentation started and welcome you guys all to sit back, participate, engage, and be curious. So I'm pretty excited for today's presentation because it will set a milestone in this organization's future and current practices and how financial responsible we are and how responsible we are with the public resources that we serve and the community that is in it. So thank you. Have a good one. Let's go ahead and get started with the slide deck. Sorry to you guys are okay with that again. So as we talked about, the agenda today is legacy issues and future capital, financial position, and the department highlights from 22 to 24. Next slide, please.
Leave it, sorry, you have control there. I'll need to share. Can I just interrupt? Pardon me.
Key takeaways today.
Share.
Good, just one question. On the first slide, you did change number 2, just a little bit. Are any other changes in the presentation from what was passed out?
If there is, they're all meant for just context purposes, so nothing significant in the changes or the values that we're going to be.
Thank you.
I'll remove it. I'll remove it.
So key takeaways again, the 2036 Greenway San Jose contract expires in 2036. How do we bridge that gap in revenue? Independent or dependent of external regional agreements and looking to update guiding principles and the documents of guiding principles for accepting waste. Those have been put on the table for information. Guiding principles and acceptance of guiding principles have been the foundation for the decision making here at Regen. They haven't been updated for some time, so I think this is a significant opportunity for us to put some time and effort in dedicating efforts to these principles. Tips for the directors and for our audience today: stay curious, ask questions. No decisions need to be made at the workshop. Start thinking about the policy and guidance to help steer the future planning in preference to the direction of the operational strategies for Regen. So when we look at the green waste San Jose, it makes up about 50% of our existing volume of Regen's Monterey landfill material that comes in. For fiscal 23-24, it represented $90 million in revenue to support expenses and capital expenses and the operational expenses. It's a 30-year contract. It expires in 2036. The contract was needed for various reasons. The organization wanted to build MRF 2.0. We went out, we bonded the MRF building and the new aspects of MRF 2.0. And we entered prior to that into this 30-year agreement to show that we had revenues to sustain the bond payments that we had. We received a AA rating at that time, so we got the best deal on a bond. But it also required us to have this external agreement to make that bond and the vision of MERC 2.0 happen. Staff will be evaluating options to replace this revenue. And these are all options that I think work together. There's no one option that would resolve or solve the issue or concerns for Region's financial position in 2036. So we could look at a gradual tip-free increases over 11 years, CPI plus a revenue goal annually. Diversify customers and let regional jurisdictions know we are open for business. That's kind of the model we're in today. Depend on contract extension and negotiate with Green Waste or other locations that could fit the bill. Traditionally, Regen has really exhausted a lot of resources around trying to achieve larger contracts and maybe replace one with another. And to Avail, we still sit in the same format of just letting customers know we have the door open and being approached by others on landfill usage. Service and other cost reductions can also be implied at 2036. Do we move our MRF? Do we move our compost operation? Do we stop generating power? What does that mean for the organization? And I think all of them combined together, we can achieve financial independence by the time we arrive to 2036. Next slide, please. Franchise collection agreements is another significant date. It's probably not as significant for Regen, but Regen helps support through TAC committee and what we see here happening at the landfill and how the municipalities are being serviced by a franchise hauler. Services that are being rendered, needs of the municipality, needs of Regen are all considered at this opportunity. So the current franchise collection agreements for 7 of the member agencies. And you see 8 up there, which is Monterey City Disposal. They expire in 2030 as well. So the number is actually 8 expirations in 2030. The preliminary discussions have started with the technical advisory committee that has representatives from franchise haulers, from the municipalities and the cities, and from Regen. Sometimes some consultants, sometimes some visitors, and it's really so that we can plan in alignment with one another. So City of Carmel is not doing something different than Del Rio Oaks. What we're doing with one another is likewise. Franchise agreements have language that are similar. I think there's a lot of considerations around that. We're gonna look at performance of the haulers, we'll look at the rates, the service that's being provided to customers, and a main component, which is education and outreach, because legislation is forcing us to get better at what we do. At this point, there is no decision that we are going to RFP or we're not. I think we're gonna be asking municipalities and asking decisions on what is the path that we want to take. And I think both of them comes with pros and cons. Next slide, please. It's like yours. At this point, I'd like to introduce David Ramirez, the Director of Engineering, and he's gonna have this section of the presentation.
Thanks, Felipe. So, good morning, everybody. My name is David Ramirez, Director of Engineering and Compliance here at Regen. And thanks for the introduction, Felipe, and thanks again, everyone, for being here. It's really exciting to talk about this stuff because I get to daylight all the stuff I've been thinking of and the things that keep me up at night and on this bigger, longer term horizon. We're talking about a contract in 2036, which you might think that's far away. But for an organization like us, which is heavily regulated, which when we move and do a project, we have to check with a bunch of environmental regulations. We have SQL analysis, things that take a long time to get approved and to get vetted. So when I think of a landfill development, I'm thinking we have 3 to 5 year timeline. For example, the material recovery facility, which we call MERF, you'll probably hear MERF a lot today. It's a recycling facility that was about 10 years in the making. And it really came from the vision that the board had. The board had to look that far ahead to be able to make the changes necessary so that we could have a facility like we have today. And so that is now passed on to this board, and I'm really excited to share this information with you guys. And first, I want to start off with an introduction to the entire site at Regen. We have a landfill that we've been filling for since the 60s. And the entire landfill footprint is represented by this purple area. Okay. So Regen has a property of 475 acres in total. So the red line, it indicates the property boundary. The purple line, 315 acres, is slated for future landfill. Okay. Regen has developed 156 acres so far. So that means that it's been filled with trash or it's been lined, right? And it's ready to get waste. Same. And Regen has not let that land in that purple area just sit. We've put it to use. The landfill's not getting filled all at once. So what we've done is we've established a truck yard, which is in this green area. We have our composting facility, which is in this area here. We've got concrete recycling and we've got sand processing that all happen in the area that Regen has projected to be landfill. In order to realize the full extent of the landfill's capabilities and how much it can receive, those facilities need to either be moved to another property, to another location nearby, maybe off-site. Or the landfill footprint needs to morph, needs to change to be able to make up for the area if we want to keep those facilities like the truck yard and the composting facility where they are. And this was talked about at the last board workshop in daylighting this topic, because if we want to move those items, it's going to take multiple years to find the property, to do the SQL analysis, to get the permitting. And that's why we're here today, because when we talk about 2036, the green waste contract, that is going to tell us how fast we're filling, how fast we need to make these decisions in order to make sure we're prepared when this inevitable circumstance happens. So yeah, covered all that stuff. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this decision and how we position ourselves in a revenue sense to be able to utilize our assets. Regen has just geological issues that are present here at the site as well. So on the left-hand side, this is the developed landfill. This is part of that 156 acres I was talking about. On the right-hand side, you have the future landfill, and you can see that we're excavating out material, sand, that we are going to fill with waste in the future. And then you also see two other elements. You see two ponds down the middle. Well, those ponds are also in the landfill footprint. So those ponds are stormwater ponds. They collect the runoff from the site, and they actually act as treatment devices for the stormwater that comes off the site. And that will also need to be relocated. There's also groundwater that needs to be intercepted and managed. And that is an issue we need to solve. Leachate is also collected on the site and is spread on the surface for evaporation. And that's allowed in our regulations. But that also needs to be something to consider in the long term of how we're going to address that leachate when we start expanding the landfill footprint. Where do these facilities exist? Those are just a couple of long-term issues that we have with at Regen, but Regen also has projects going on right now that we are working to. I think I just passed the 4 slides here. Good. Regen has projects going on right now where we are investigating what the best use of the landfill gas is. So we talked about water, now we're talking about the gas that comes out of the landfill. A gas that comes out of the landfill is about 50% methane. Right now, what we do with it is we run it through engines which produce electricity. We produce about 5 megawatts of electricity here at Regen, and that uses about half of the gas that we have on site. The other 50% of the gas, and the other half of the gas is burned off in a flare to eliminate its greenhouse gas potential. So we burn that gas off, but that is a resource for Regen. We have a decision to make in the next 10 years about whether we want to continue down the energy pathway of pursuing more electricity with that gas, or if we want to pivot and start getting into renewable natural gas. We can clean up that gas from 50% up to 90% quality of methane, and then inject it into the natural gas pipeline, renewable natural gas injection site. And that requires investment, that requires a long-term horizon, that requires a knowledge of where we're gonna be going in 2036, so we can make these investments, have the money on hand, so that we can make good decisions. So right now, Regen uses about 1.2 megawatts of power, and of the total 5 megawatts of power, we use 1.2. Any excess power is sold to the PG&E grid. And so, we are also going to be working on another project. With the energy that we're making right now of those 5 megawatts, we do have a power purchase agreement and a project ongoing right now to connect Regen's power plant to Monterey One Water, which is our neighbor. They have a sewer treatment plant here, and they have a very energy intense process where they're cleaning up the water that they're receiving, that they're producing, and turning it into drinking water. So it's called the Advanced Water Purification Project, and it requires a lot of energy. And so Monterey One Water is looking to buy energy from Regen Monterey. And in order to do that, we need to connect over the fence to Monterey One Water. So where we generate the power, and they're able to use the power on their site. And that's a huge benefit for both public organizations. We get more money for the power we produce. Currently, we're getting about 3 cents, 5 cents per kilowatt hour from PG&E. Monterey One Water would buy that energy at around 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So you see a big jump in revenue for Regen. On the M1W side, Monterey One Water side, they are paying about 27 cents per kilowatt hour, and they'd be buying it for 15. So you can see where it's very attractive for us to be making this connection. That project is ongoing, breaking ground at the end of March.
So it's moving online, but it's just delayed on this one.
I don't wanna. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. In addition to the 21 with the interconnection project that for electricity, we also have a composting project in process now. And remember, when I showed that map of Regen and the landfill, now the compost facility was in the footprint of the landfill. But we're gonna be investing collectively about $6 million in that area. To be able to compost with the new technology. Right now, if you see these piles here, they are called they're called static piles, where they just sit there, don't move, they let the material get up to temperature, and then they'll rotate the compost pile a few times during the process to move new material into the center so that it can decompose aerobically with oxygen. The oxygen really helps to keep the bugs happy in the compost and so that they can break down the organic matter. The new project is called covered aerated static piles. So this is where you have a pile and there's actually pipes run underneath the compost in process, and you inject air, oxygen, into the pile. And the bugs are having a party in there. They're really happy. They're breaking down the organic matter faster and with less odor than they were before in a static pile. So just it improves the chemistry, improves the biology in the pile. It doesn't have to be rotated. It can stay static, and you get a lot better throughput and a better product at the end. So this project is a partnership with Cal Recycle. They've awarded us a grant of $3 million, and Regen is also putting in $3 million into this project. And we expect it to be completed before the end of the year.
There's also a clicker there, David.
Is it quicker?
Yes.
But, so we're bringing these to light because of the long-term impacts that these decisions and these conversations have. As we make investments, you see how we're investing in this composting facility. We have to make these decisions knowing the longer horizon of what's gonna happen. And so the board's direction on where we go from a revenue standpoint is really gonna impact how we move forward on big projects like this. And that's what I had to offer, and I'm gonna pass it on to Felipe, who is, yeah, there is a delay, that one is faster.
So, you know, again, go right back to the Green Waste contract. It's significant because of the $9 million attribute that we use annually. How are we gonna bridge that gap? Again, being independent or dependent. And I'm gonna grind you guys really hard on these guiding principles, because I think they will be the foundation to making decisions as we move forward in the next fiscal budget year and every year leading up to 2036.
Felipe, before you go on to the financial position, I'd like to give the board an opportunity to ask questions on this portion. So does anyone have any questions? Dr. Barber?
Yeah, first of all, wonderful. Thank you both, for the presentation. Appreciate that. Just had a question. I know you were talking about, module 7 that's on the landfill and under construction. You talked a little bit about what some of the plans are set. What's the timeline on that part?
Module 7 construction is right there, ready to be completed. We've got all the construction monitoring done. We're writing a letter to the water board, showing them all the data that we've collected for the construction. As I said, we're really heavily regulated, so each scoop of dirt that's removed, each liner that's placed needs to be documented and tested. And so that letter is going to the water board probably in the next 2 weeks for acceptance, and then we can start putting waste in there.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one was, I know you spoke about green waste being 50% of the landfill, that we get as far as, and then you mentioned Monterey, disposal, as part of the 9. What percentage does Monterey disposal bring?
Monterey, well, I leave it to maybe Helen to answer, but it's a smaller percentage. Green Waste San Jose is around 50%.
Right.
They're very large. I would say Monterey is maybe in the 10% range or so, and that's, I don't have the exact number, but it's relatively small.
If they were part of the 2030, it's gonna be expiring at that time, or is it all?
No, so there's two different revenue sources, and we'll get into a little bit more, I think, but,
Okay.
the city, the member agencies, which are represented by this board, they're bringing in their haul trucks, their, the garbage trucks that visit your city, including Monterey Disposal. So those are our member agency tons, that's about 50%.
Okay,
There's another contract which Regen has negotiated many years ago for waste from San Jose.
mhm,
That contract, which is separate than the member agency, that contract is what's gonna be expiring in 2036.
and that's bringing the 50%,
That's the other 50% rough.
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking very rough numbers.
okay,
But it's probably more appropriate to say it's about $9 million in annual revenue.
okay, thank you.
More questions?
Yeah, just a few, you know, like I said, we've kind of, we've reviewed this a few times and it's been, you know, a couple of annual meetings, we have a handful of new board members, and so I would just encourage everyone to like ask all the questions that seem like they may be dumb questions, but I think it's relevant. And I also think it's relevant for the community, because there will be cost implications for
Yes.
our ratepayers and our member jurisdictions that really that depend on our clear understanding of these issues. So, and so we're talking, so going back to the MERV, the conversation about the MERV, which really was the genesis of the board deciding to, enter into the contract with, the 2006, if I'm doing the math right, that we entered into the Greenways San Jose contract, it was a 30-year contract to 2036. And so just kind of timing out, so the original MRF opened in 1996, that was prior to the previous contract, and then it was the 2000, I'm getting this right, the 2011 mandate that required us to expand the MRF, that then opened, so we needed the additional revenue to be able to do MRF 2.0, that opened in 2018, which led us to say, we knew this was coming, so we needed the additional revenue. Just on our website, having those dates more clearly lined out so that it's clear like what the original MRF was, what the MRF 2.0 was, what the state regulations were that led us to like, because some of these weren't, it wasn't a voluntary,
Right.
right? Like we weren't saying, oh gosh, we just
Legislation-
want to do this
legislation took
thing.
over.
So on some level, we were, if we want to continue having a landfill here that accepts local waste, we had to make some decisions about how do we remain operational to accept local waste. It was either we increase fees significantly to our local members so that we can pay for these infrastructure improvements, or we will find additional revenue to subsidize the cost of these infrastructure improvements that were necessary in order to stay in operation. And I don't know that that clearly comes, I know we've done the work on our white paper, but maybe taking some of that content from the white paper and getting it into the webpage so that to the public, when we start talking about this, that educational piece is there. And when I say the public, I'm also talking about, you know, for us, when I'm thinking or I'm having a conversation, I can go back and quickly reference as well, the timelines and how they come together. So, thank you for just the comment.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Is the hauling business profitable?
Yes,
Are there any other landfill operations?
you're on the profits, you guys have, open books with your franchise haulers, so you guys can request those from your city manager. You'll have all their expenses, all their costs, everything in one location.
Are there other landfill operations around the country that are integrated into that business? So you control the whole flow of
Yes,
the process?
there is.
Is that something that you've ever thought of doing?
I
Since all
have
these
not.
contracts are expiring,
I have not. I think it is very onersome for an agency to own the franchise agreements for the cities. But it is a potential track that we can consider along the way, so it's a great
I think
position. I want to comment a little bit on Director Askews. I wanted to say thank you to Director Burns and Director Dodori. They did take time in advance of this meeting to get up to speed. They both had done tours, like we spent a significant amount of time talking about a lot of what's occurred, in the last 2 or 3 years here at Region, so that they are pretty up to speed and had an opportunity to ask a lot of questions already, so I think we're good there.
Now, we had a discussion about some of the waste haulers aren't executing some of the vision that we have here.
Right.
To the end user.
Yeah.
Which creates problems coming back.
Exactly, so that's why the TAC committee was formed, was really to resolve issues that could be either faced at the collection point or at the post-collection point.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Great that we're doing something 11 years in advance. So Felipe, you mentioned that, our doors are open for business, essentially. And folks can come in and start using our services. So any kind of like broad comments on why folks are not actually coming in today? Or why have you lost on opportunities? What are the major criteria? Is it
I think it's all logistics, cost, pricing, transport. I think they're all play a factor in who delivers material here. We get about 800 customers a day. 500 of those are public customers that are doing, probably running their own private business, landscaping business, demo business, construction companies that are using the landfill because our doors are open and it's close by the construction site. Then we have franchise haulers that have been invited to participate in a long 10-year agreement. That's what we call them, franchise agreements, normally 10 to 15-year agreements, mainly to spread cost across. I wouldn't say that we're losing the opportunity. I think we want to be in a position where when customers come in and want to use a significant portion of our landscape, that we are in agreement that it's favorable for the organization and that we consider our member agency costs along with the external regional cost is what I've heard in my time here. It's, we'd like to see a balance there, but there's also reasons that support a reduction in cost. They're not using the recycling facility. They're not using the compost facility. They don't use the HHW facility. They're going right up to the landfill and using landfill space because that material is considered inert. It's already been processed, it's already been harvested for material. So there is some consideration, and the transport consideration is another, is how do you make it viable and for both parties? It wouldn't make sense to overpay when you can deliver to a different facility at a reduced cost. So there's a variation in the response. I don't think we're losing customers. I think we just want to strategize on how do we accept more and at what rate. When they come right across the scale, it's $77 a ton. And in an agreement, we've seen cost as low as $30 a ton. So you can see the significant difference and impact to revenue and the landfill life based on those costs. Again, to Supervisor Askew's, it was a position that the organization knew they were entering, and it was needed to get the material recycling facility we have today. But we have 11 years to do it. If we do nothing, a significant rate increase would be an option. And it would be so significant that it would not be palatable for the community. Or you got 11 years to spread that out and make incremental gains across the revenue stream, and then also the gains that you can get with infrastructure and projects that are coming online. Great question.
Yeah, just to follow up on that too, like, at least in these documents, there were some facilities which are in the nearby area that are closing down relatively shortly, like lots of them that are. Obviously, they're in the same predicament that we are. So with that being said, what happens to their contracts? The ones that they have you examined something from their perspective to see if we can help?
So we stay abreast to locals, most recently was San Benito County. They reached their 15-year capacity point, which meant they could not receive external volume anymore. Waste Connections, which was doing their landfill business for them, approached Region, and we entered into a 5-year agreement. Well, San Benito is realizing whether they want to do a landfill expansion or build a transfer station to deliver materials out of their county into a different county. typical of what we normally see. And when we have agreements, with other folks that take us a little bit further out than the 2036 destination, that's why they're not included in the 2036 discussion, because they go out to 2054, or a little bit further out. So as we change on our guiding principles or not, we can, see what we'll do with those contracts, but the first one in the plain line of sight is 2036.
Yeah, and just, sorry to belabor this, the horse, but, what I'm getting at is potentially these landfills may also have some significant revenue source like San Jose, attached to them.
Yep.
And so they're technically losing out. Can we go after those bigger
Yes.
contracts? Yes.
Yes, and usually we're notified to participate in a request for proposal on what we would charge for the landfill space. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
So, that you're touching on a key point of this discussion. And it's really the board's purview on what direction you want to give to staff, because there's two sides. Do we go out looking for business beyond our borders, beyond the member agencies, and look for tons to import, right? That comes at a cost. Landfill space, landfill lifetime. So, and dependence on some of that revenue to keep the costs down on the member agencies. So you have, it's this balancing act of which one does the board value more? Do they want us to pivot and focus more on maintaining landfill life, being more of a member type organization? That's gonna have a cost. Does the board want us to continue pursuing business out with the neighboring entities to bring waste in, to bring down costs, but also to expend some of the landfill space? That's really the discussion to talk about.
And David, just, you had mentioned, methane versus renewable gas, like there are considerations there.
Yeah.
What is the revenue that you get for renewable gas?
For renewable gas, there's been some early, so you wanna go?
I'll chime in, you know, we work really close with Monterey One Water on trying to see pros and cons. They're gonna deliver some of their digester gas into the pipeline, and they're expecting, have an estimated revenue of $2 to $3 million for putting 600 CFM, which is the measurement for the gas output. Right now, we have 2,800 SCFM available that can be considered for, not all of it, because some of it is obviously already being used for the facility. Some of it will be delivered to Monterey One Water, but that excess is still in the well range of, 1,800 SCFM. Probably has a value of $9 to $10 million if we can execute on a project like that annually, which would be very significant in our approach to 2036.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you made a presentation to the board yet on the investment that would take? To
No.
inject the gas?
No, but we did do the board authorized feasibility study that we jointly worked on with Monterey One Water. It had some results. That was the big one for us, the big takeaway. So we will be probably having in our budget an assumption of an evaluation number 2. We're in discussions of what that would look like for us moving forward on it, and when that could actually be planned, designed, and then actually built. So we're excited to bring that in the near future.
What kind of time frame does it take to add that kind of capability?
It'll take us 3 years to build.
3 years at least.
After the decision's been authorized and approved and funded, but
It's not nothing.
yeah, it's a order today and get it by next month. It's definitely a plan, design, and build out position.
Just real quick, I'll say, again, I'm so grateful that you're doing this workshop. I think this is super important because I think as a board, we have some philosophical decisions that we need to make. And so we need all the information we can to really make that decision moving forward. We need to think about the generations down the line that we maintain our facility. So it's really, really important. And I think there are some other projects that we can tackle along the way. I think thinking about 2036 and giving that as just our time frame. Like we need to be working a little bit more quickly maybe because of that time frame. and how do we want to move, within that. So, I just want to thank you for all of your work and excited to hear the rest of it, so.
We appreciate it, and I think the other one is the operations, you're not gonna see anything on our existing operations. Maybe because we're already tackling those everyday items, being more efficient and being world-class in communication, so have a high desire to be functioning well out there. And this output is a result that will run itself when you have a manager, a supervisor, and a manager conducting business on what the future visions could be for the organization. So that's off to Jay Ramos, our Director of Operations. Also Jameson Pfister, our Assistant Director of Operations. We have David Salcido back there, our MERT Manager, and Efrain, our Technical Manager with maintenance. So we have a lot of stuff going on. And we didn't even include it in here, but we're handling that daily stuff so we can tackle some of these larger items that will be significant for the organization. Probably well past everybody's time in here. But these decisions will be a pivotal point in the organization's future. So if we're all ready to move on and we have no more questions, any more public questions? Public?
No.
Financial position, we did a lot of rounding here, don't get hooked on numbers, it is a view of our finances, and I think this was really important to include. Because what we're talking about is financial resiliency, independency, or dependency. But we wanted to give you just a broad view of what our finances look like for the organization. This is a summary, and we have some unallocated costs that go into these departments, and you can see those costs are coming from the support departments, which is 15 million for the admin building, 4.3 million from the shop, and 1.1 million from the scales. Just wanted to give you a snapshot for fiscal year 23-24. We had a revenue of about $51.8 million, roughly 52 million, and about $49 million in expenses, and an income from operations of 3.2 million. When we look at this, I look at our income from operations as a cash contribution to our liabilities that we have on the books for the organization. So this is a quick annual view of what we look like, and I'm not gonna go through every department, but I really wanted to give that cascading view for an annual view. 52 million, $49 million in expenses, and roughly $3 million in income from operations, which become cash contributions for liabilities. Here's the allocated view. It's the same format, but it took all the support departments and put them into the landfill, material recycling facility bucket, organic. So we allocated those costs into other departments, and the outcome is still the same. Just wants to pick and choose what wants to do. Some top revenue resources. Our solid waste obviously is the lion's share of our revenue. Don't want to go through all of them, but as you can see, there are some significant top revenue sources which equal to $52 million. Our top expenses, cost of employment, no surprise. The organization has been very committed to its workforce. Its contributions to the workforce and making sure that we provide a good environment for the workforce. We're rich in resources that we have, time off, very good packages for the organization. It is a union environment, but cost of employment stands out at the top. And again, another snapshot, our income is about 3.2 million and becomes cash contributions. Summary of debt. We'll look at long-term liabilities, which is roughly 7 million. You see the revenue bonds are there, the net pension liability. And the board has been really working on really bringing these down. So we've been focused on making sure our post-closure and closure costs are adequate and not meeting a minimum criteria, but exceeding it. And then post-employment health benefits, which goes back to our PERS and being a PERS-able location here at Region Monterey. Current liabilities for the 2024 year was roughly 12.4 million and a total debt of 79.3 million. And that's really important for us to know that 79.3 million of debt, where it's coming from, and then when we compare it to our ending cash for 2024, you can start saying, all right, well, we have money in the bank, we have liabilities, kind of sounds like our home finances is you're gonna have some debt to own your home or lease your home or lease your car or buy your car. Similar format, I really wanted to expose the debt factor. When we look at the allocated cost, I took that same format that we had, so you have allocated cost. Again, I'm gonna beat your drum, 52 million, $49 million in expenses, $3.2 million in cash contributions. Total debt of 79.3 million. Ending cash is about 40.6 million. And that's broken out into different cash buckets. We have unrestricted cash, or unrestricted funds of 22 million. Essentially, we can do just about anything with that cash. Designated cash of about 13.8 million. Designated cash can also be undesignated from the board. And then you have restricted cash, it has only one intent and can be unrestricted from the board. Thus giving you an ending cash balance of 40.6 million on a debt ratio of 79.3 million. Key takeaways, again, why is it important? Because if we don't keep track, we will keep going to that money bag of cash and not be prepared to bridge the gap in revenue when we hit the expiration of the Greenway San Jose contract. Again, keep in your mind, do we want to be dependent or independent of those contracts? And then looking at the guiding principles and see what makes sense or doesn't make sense for our organization to continue to follow. We will reset those guiding principles and prepare ourselves for the next 10 to 11 years. At this time, we'll
Let's
take
do
it back to the
questions.
chair and then questions from.
Questions from the board members on this section.
Again, before your questions, nothing to really, you want to get into the detail, it was again a snapshot. We do have the ability to set time with Helen and Garth and myself to get into the detail of the departments, but again, today's intent was really not to go through accounting 101, and that's why we made that pretty brief presentation on finances. Go ahead.
I was just commenting on that slide which has our allocation in there. And just wanted to, finally looking at this slide only. There are, if you take household hazardous waste and it says, we're 1.1 million short after expenses and allegations. Is that because of the liability and all the?
Yes.
Accounted for?
Yes.
Or, yeah. That's all.
Can I jump in there
Good.
to add a little bit? But it's also a public service. So if residents have household hazardous waste in their homes, Regen is providing a customer service at its expense to provide an outlet for that material, which may be thrown in the landfill, which we don't want. That, some of that in there too.
So we would expect to never make money on it, right?
Again,
That's what we're
and we look
thinking.
for grants and funding opportunities, but it's really not the main driver to create revenue from this stream. Is to keep our main goal around the stewardship of our environment is one of our key pillars for our strategic plan. So this is the way that we can execute on it, and we don't want that stuff to go to the MRF where people are processing it and then they inhale fumes and then we get sick people. We don't want it to go into the landfill, which has a direct path to groundwater and other stuff. Even though we're heavily regulated, there's opportunities for that to occur, fires and other sources there. So keeping it out and segregated, we're getting into the right destination. If it can be reused, it will be. If not, it will be recycled and deconstructed.
I'm sure my questions are gonna be naive. first day here, but it seems like we're sort of losing sleep over this 2036 large contract. Is our overriding vision and commitment as an organization really to the communities that we primarily service in our area?
I would say yes to your question.
And so I would think that it might be better to design our business around long-term support of those instead of bringing in waste to use up our capacity, because once it's gone.
It's exactly the reason why we're here. We really want to get to that.
Yeah, that's the question.
Is that sort of the mindset we're trying to get into?
Yes,
Okay.
great observation for day number one.
I got there in less than an hour. But it's an interesting dilemma for a business, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to take that money, but is that really the right thing to do?
Perfect.
So kind of along those lines, I was just trying to pull up our agenda from, it was either last year or maybe it was the year before. Where I think we were reviewing all of the lists of. It was either contracts or like where all of our waste is coming from. And sort of the revenue associated and the timeline of all of those contracts. Were we gonna go into that level of detail today?
No.
No, okay, not today.
But if you would like to refresh those contracts, we can re-deliver them out, so either we could take a mental note on. It was one slide of a whole slide deck that really pinned in all our external
Was that last
contracts.
year that we talked about?
We do it right around budget to
Oh,
share.
right on budget time, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think like and I know you guys are in that space all the time. But it is so helpful just to like ping that back to us
Yep.
every so often so that we can just, for me to like, I need to see it a couple times and. You know, I sit at the region one day a month and then there's all the other spaces that my brain goes. But I think to the question, right, it is like our primary service. 100% is to the jurisdiction member agencies. And it can make sure that my neighbors and the residents that I represent have guaranteed access today and in the future. The location and some rate stability in terms of where our waste is going. And that's what Region, in my mind, provides us with. And knowing that, you know, we've got $40 million in revenue bonds that are outstanding, like we do have it. I recognize that there is this tension that our member agencies maybe were not a large enough group to be able to maintain all of the infrastructure that the state is putting on us to continue operations at the level that we're required to, like a MRF costs money, all of the 1383 requirements cost infrastructure dollars. And if we were to try to do that on our own, we would be talking about, you know, we'd be really clear and understand, for me, I need to understand, like, what kind of rate increases would we be talking about?
It's coming soon. We're
Okay,
pretty
that's
close.
coming, okay, so.
It's not here today, but it'll come back to the board in a format where we can digest what that potential item of a gradual increase over this period of time, so we can be sustainable.
Mhm.
We have an idea, we're in that ballpark, and we're trying to see how we're gonna deliver that, so that will come.
Yeah.
So
And I think the question for me is like, because I'm not able to answer that question, that's not a question for me to be able to answer, representing my residents. That's a question for me to take back to my community and say, hey, here's the question, here's the issue. What do you think? Tell me your thoughts. Ultimately, maybe the choice sits here, but it's an educational question that I have to get feedback from the community. But I have to be able to have the clear education to the community so they understand these are the choices. And the white paper that we started with, I think is a great place to begin that education.
Great,
So
great.
anyway, I appreciate the
Great
question, I
comments.
appreciate the question, and I think we're, you know.
I think the comments are fantastic. If you look at your guiding principles, you will see one of the principles of saving 75 years of landfill space. We got about 120 to 130 projected at the time we used that San Jose contract. So at that point, we can make the determination. Do we want 75 years and sell excess of that, or do we want the full gamut of that 120, 130 years? Is really your question that Director Burns and Director Root asked you are really kind of broaching at this time, but we do have a pretty good idea of what an 11-year path would look like in contributions with all those other items of reduction of workforce, reduction of services. What is that key? But we do have a good idea, and I think you'll be very surprised on how we can get there. It'll have impact, but it's not 55% in year number one, like it would be on 2036 expiration date.
Felipe, I know you don't want to get into details. Can you just go back to the slide
Sure.
again? So we talked about household hazardous waste. That is something that we provide to the community. We don't expect to make money on that. Landfill gas to energy, it seems as though there are some changes we could make if we're gonna go to RNG, right, where we could increase that revenue.
Well, and then you also got the power sales to Monterey One Water, which would
Right.
take the excess that has a value of about $1 million now to $3 million,
Yeah.
which would get us over the line. So
Okay.
it's promising.
All right, so we've got some movement on that one. On organics, on compost, do you see any levers that you would be able to pull to
Yes,
change
I
that?
think we can evaluate our allocation there because our allocation is what puts us in the red. And I think our allocation probably lands somewhere else because really what we're doing with compost is the waste system attribute of weighing in and then pointing over to keep data in hand is everything else there. So I think the allocation may be overstated in this line.
Okay,
Don't get hooked on the reds.
okay, no, I'm just curious. And then the MERV, are there any levers we can pull there? Or it just is what it is? Like, I'm okay if it's like, we're just always gonna expect the.
And I'll talk
on that.
a little bit about MERV, again, this is a service where we're really not trying to make money on, it. We're
Right.
really trying to deliver a service, but when we look at the market, the volume we have today is mainly because we have a preferred pricing for waste management, Republic, green waste recovery, so we handle recycling services more than just for the member agencies, but that makes us really efficient in processing. Right now, we don't have enough material to process 6 days in a row, but it gives us time to clean our MERV, fix our machines and all of that in between. If we lose or get too, hooked on elevating our rate to a certain point, we may lose that volume, which we lose efficiencies in that MERV and offset costs as well. Same way the structure works for garbage, but for this one here, we have the sale and rebates that maybe not included as well, so.
Yeah, okay.
There is certain reason and aspects. And I think, David, you were right, the red was gonna bring red flags and
No, it's okay, but it's good, I'm thinking of Bill, Director Pete and him, wanting to look at each one of the areas that we discuss and wonder, are we
Yeah.
making a good business decision?
And
in that
I think
area?
this tells the story here.
Yeah.
Because we could have made them all green based on this here. But I think it's the need and the gamut of services that we don't have. Anywhere else, there's not many facilities that have every one of these services, so definitely a Disneyland of public resource and services.
Yeah,
And do we want to diminish that? But it does, by being very tactical and dropping in actual expenses, we can realize the operational needs that we need to pursue to become more effective and efficient. We can also pursue projects that are gonna improve the financial position. And that was the challenge from Mayor Pete was that, do you know what's happening in these silos? The answer is absolutely yes. Often we're in this realm that we share, but we really know what's going on to the detail in every bucket that you see above. So great question.
thank you.
I have one more on that.
Sure.
On the same vein, when you do the covered organics, compost, and maybe have more marketing to let people know this exists, which is pretty amazing, by the way. I love it. What are those numbers gonna look like when we finish your latest project?
I'm not really sure on how it's gonna look because we are pretty close to our capacity on our permit volume. So our volume is not going to increase because we can increase the time. I think the efforts are, all the material that you see there already has a destination. So there's no material that we're sitting on and looking for outsourcing it. That was one of the key takeaways when
Will
we.
the costs go up or down when we put this new system in?
I think costs will remain relatively where they're at today.
It's just a better process.
Yeah, because of the grant support and then the investment that we want to be in, and that's some of the stewardship to the community. and the stewardship to the environment to reduce the emissions and reduce the air for the community.
Are there any questions from the public at this point?
I show none.
Okay.
You're welcome. Would the group like a 5-minute break in between? We want to plow through and make it happen. All right.
Good.
Sounds good. Dale, I think your hour before may be exhausting my voice, so bear with me as it cuts in and cuts out. Again, I think the dialogue and the discussion is right on tune. I really like to thank David and the staff and everybody that contributed. You know, we were really hard on one another on how this was gonna roll out. The chair also was we want to have objectives, we want to define, so hopefully this is coming together for what we expected to do, and that's make some critical decisions in the near future. We're gonna go to department highlights, and as I discussed, this is some of the work that's been performed, some of the heavy lifting, and this is an opportunity for the public and the directors to recognize the leadership in our organization that really hold a gateway for certain departments and the attributes that they give to the organization. So extremely to be part of the team. At this time, we're gonna hand it over to Berta Torres, our Human Resources Director for Regen Monterey. This clicker is working right now. We should be good.
Good morning, everyone. Berta Torres, Director of Human Resources. I'm happy to present you with an overview. So as you heard from Felipe and David, there's a lot going on here. And so how do we organize the work? And I want to start off with an introduction to an introduction to our overall organizational structure. There we go. All right, so an introduction to our organization structure. We have a total of 13 departments. Sorry, I have allergies. I'm not sick. I have this cough that's nagging. So Region has a hierarchical management structure with 4 levels of management, from supervisor to the general manager. Departments are organized by service or function, operations or support, and there are 13 departments, with most having 2 to 3 levels of management. And while each department has their primary responsibilities, some share overlapping responsibilities and must work in tandem with other departments on a daily basis to achieve overall outcomes and broader organizational objectives. As an example, engineering and landfill operations and MRF operations, they work daily. Thank you. They work on a daily basis on many of their operations and support each other in a variety of ways to accomplish the overall goals. The HR and communications department also partner on some projects. One very important HR initiative that we partnered with the comms team was on a internal education. So the public education department did a lot of external education up until recently, and we wanted to ensure that employees were familiar with all of the functions within the organization. And so we partnered with the comms team to do employee tours. And this allowed for everyone who works here to really know what is going on in other areas that they would not otherwise have an opportunity to view, as we do with public schools and other visitors. And to stay abreast of all the changing dynamics that are occurring on a daily basis, we have weekly meetings with representatives. It's the ops meeting, weekly meetings with representatives from all of the departments. They come together in this room to stay abreast of changing priorities and just know what is happening in other areas that they would not otherwise have known. And how to support each other. For example, if the MRF is staging or receiving at a different area, then that information is good for the MRF to know. And maybe Pub Ed to know or communications to know so that they can get information out to the public. The GM holds quarterly what we call GM huddles. He meets with each department and briefs them on, you know, what's happened in the last quarter. Reports out on a lot of the board decisions and the impact of those, so that all employees are receiving the same information. We also have department meetings. Obviously, I have a weekly HR huddle with my team, and I believe other departments do the same thing. And then certain operations department, I know the MRF, they have a daily huddle, just stretches and right before the work, and then just brief update on what's going on. In regard to labor relations, as you can see, 92% of our positions are classified in or part of a bargaining unit. We have 3 bargaining units with operating engineers local 3, allies unit, operations unit, support unit. We also have an independent management unit, and then a small percentage of non-affiliated employees, which include directors, general manager, and a few confidential positions. Longevity, Region has had is proud to have had tenured employees for many years. After COVID, it sort of shifted a little bit where the majority of our employees now were newer and longer term with a lot of the retirements, but we currently have 19% of our employees are eligible for retirement, and yet, you know, they continue to work. I think that that's a testament to this is a good place to work, and there's a lot the Region offers to employees here. 32% have more than 10 years of service. 37% in terms of demographics, 37% of our employees are 50 years or older. Again, we saw a shift within the last 5 years. And CalPERS, we have, this was a huge shift. And as I'm sure you all have experienced or are familiar with the CalPERS Classic versus PEPRA and how that needed to be balanced. And so now in the last 5 years, we've seen a flip where we have the majority of our employees under the CalPERS PEPRA versus 27% still under the classic CalPERS retirement pension program. Another thing that Region is very proud of is their internal growth and promotions. These are the last few years stats to show out of 138 currently that we have budgeted. You know, we do a lot of internal promoting employees who start off at the lowest level classification. There are opportunities for them to grow and move up in the organization. And you can see some recent headcount changes the last few years. And a lot of these changes were increases in headcount to support operational objectives, encourage time off. We did have a lot of employees who had accumulated or accrued a lot of PTO, and because of staffing issues, we're struggling to take time off, extended time off. So by ensuring that we have sufficient staff to accommodate that, then employees are more, you know, willing to take time off. We've added people to, in the last, these headcount changes represent addition and people to engineering and compliance, landfill operations, materials recovery facility, the maintenance shop, and the communications department. So in regard to staffing and turnover, Region has had a overall in the last 3 years turnover rate of 7 to 12%. So very low, and this is pretty consistent with what we've seen, you know, in 10 years, at least since I've been here. I've already discussed some of the additional headcount and where they landed. Labor relations. We renegotiated contracts with the operating engineers local 3 with 3 of the units. With the Allies unit, we negotiated with them a 2-year contract in 2023. And then last year we renegotiated 5-year term contracts with the 3 other units, which is the management unit, the support unit, and the operations unit. So by extending the term of the contract, you know, that obviously means that we're not going to be sitting down at the negotiation table every year. And having them all expire at the same time in 2029. That saves some management time. And also, you know, negotiations are not always a peaceful, happy experience for everyone. It's a little stressful for both sides. And so I think that this gives us, you know, some time to really focus on other things that are also important. In the more recent labor contracts, we're very proud of having made wage and benefit improvements. The board authorized and approved a living wage adjustment for the Allies unit, first contract that we negotiated in 2023. That was the first time that has happened here at Region, where in addition to just COLA, the Allies unit is the lower level classifications. And so we recognize that cost of living in the county is very expensive. And management proposed and the board authorized a living wage adjustment for those employees in addition to the COLA. So that was a huge win. We also made benefit improvements with all of these contracts. LTD, long-term disability, short-term disability, and education reimbursements, those also improved for all 3 contracts. And we eliminated some legacy policies that were not balanced in favor of both employer and employee. And I'm happy to share if there's any interest in learning a little bit more about that. Learning and development has really come to the forefront in the last few years. With all, and we're focusing a lot on management and leadership development. We implemented a learning program for leadership. It's a custom design program that was designed with the focus on our values, Region's values or traits, also known as our traits. We leveraged those traits to develop the program and have been on this journey for the last 3 years on having 34 people, managers, supervisors, and next level down, which are the shift leads and coordinators, participate and attend half-day learning events. And we're still on that journey. We haven't completed the program. We continue to learn together and grow together. In addition to the management or leadership development program, last year we had about a little over 600 hours in skills building training. These are trainings that are non-mandatory or not required for individuals' positions, but opportunities that the employee is pursuing to improve themselves. It could be someone who doesn't necessarily work at a desk, but they want to take computer classes, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. Those are available, or you know, they might not need it for their role, but it would be helpful if they did have those skill sets. And so there's a lot of training that Region has available, and with the education reimbursement, that is also a really great benefit for employees who may not have a, college degree and who are interested in pursuing, an AA or a bachelor's degree. That also is available, to anyone, who is interested. Region also does a lot in terms of, rewards and recognition. We have a robust program that includes, anniversary awards, which are, employees receive on a quarterly basis, during what, we call the town hall. So, it's a luncheon. Usually it's a barbecue, it's outdoors. And, all employees who reached a milestone year, 3, 5, 10, 15, they receive an award, and tied to the award is a financial bonus. It's a gift card, and it increases by years of service. We have a peer-to-peer recognition program, the High Five Award, and we have a supervisor to employee recognition program, which is the GEM Award, or Going the Extra Mile Award. These recognition programs were developed with input from employees, frontline staff. We formed a focus group, gathered input from all of them from the group to design the programs. So, for example, when we met with the employee focus group, we asked, what is it that you appreciate about your coworkers? What is it that you want to recognize? What is it that you would like to see more of? And based on all of that input, we designed the High Five Award. And then the name of the award, the logo, all of it was, with input from that focus group. Same thing with the the supervisor to employee, Going the Extra Mile Award. That was also designed with input from the frontline supervisors. What is it that you appreciate about your staff? What is it that you would like to see more of? What would you like to encourage? And what do you want to reward and recognize? So these are really good ways for and managers and employees to recognize each other. We also have a very active social committee, as some of you have already had the benefit of enjoying some of the events that are coordinated, planned by the social committee. Again, it's a group of employees from many of the departments who come together to plan internal employee events. They also contribute towards the holiday dinner event. That is not part of the social committee, it's a HR program, but we plan it and use social committee input for that event, and it's always a fun event and really good event. We have a wellness committee that we began working with about maybe 5 years ago. And the purpose of the wellness committee is to design and support programs or employee wellness programs. Our current program consists of we do an annual wellness fair. We invite our health insurance vendors to send a rep if they're able to, or send a swag to hand out informational material to hand out from our Delta Dental, VSP, a raffle item. We set up out here with a tent. We have a farmer's market, so we contract with a local organic farmer from Watsonville. We purchase the produce. Employees take home a bag of fresh produce. Fatima here was setting up Fatima is our HR coordinator, setting up for the farmer's market that day. And in that wellness fair, we also do biometrics or flu vaccines, COVID vaccines during COVID. So that was something that was designed with input from employees. We also have, in order to encourage healthy eating, we have subsidized lunches, what we call healthy meals, with the food truck that parks right outside our offices here. We work with them in designing a menu, 3 to 4 items, 3 or 4 meals that are healthy, nutritious, and the employee pays $5 and Region picks up the cost. So we budget, it's not that expensive. I think we budget about $2,000, $2,500 a year. And it really supports and helps employees have a nice, healthy lunch without having to spend too much. They're eating healthier more often. So that's, I guess the other thing is the HR compliance. So we haven't had any grievances in 10 years.
Wow.
And regulatory complaints, we had, that doesn't mean we don't have employee complaints, so we do, but just to distinguish the grievances. Grievances are formal union complaints. We did have about 5 years ago, we had a PERB complaint and an EOC complaint. Both were dismissed with prejudice, so in 10 years, we haven't had any. So we're really proud of our record and really, HR's, what I tell my staff is we are here to serve the employee and we try to accommodate, and provide a service to all. And consistency is key. We try to be very consistent and fair in enforcement and application of policy. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Hi, Jerry.
I think you do an amazing job. One of the first leadership books I bought was called Intrinsic Motivation. And it has to do with basically everything you just talked about. All of these things that we could think is a cost. Why would we be doing all that stuff for employees? But I don't know, you just kind of, you bring them up socially and you make them feel good about where they spend the majority of their time. Coming from a construction background, and being just a means to an end, cog in the wheel kind of thing. This is really the model that has been introduced for the future, and it's really huge dividends. The 7 to 12% turnover is one of the things. There was a study done with Costco, Sam's Club, similar type businesses to analyze what is the square foot profits. And even though Costco paid more for employees and did a lot of these things, not to the extent that you're doing. And they sold higher quality products and they made more per foot, even though the other places are paying minimum wage and stuff. You'd think that they would be, the net result would be more per foot, but it's not. So I think that our productivity, it's hard to define it, but it's there. Our productivity is a lot higher than if we didn't have all of these things operating. Anyway.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Berta. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Great work.
And at this time, we have all our ops team here, with the exception of the supervisors and some of the youth, but they're all gonna partake in this portion of the introduction. So take it away, Jim.
This is the fun part of the presentation. Good morning, I am Jay Ramos, the Director of Operations. The operations team is made up of some very talented individuals. With me today are 3 managers that will walk you through the operations slides. We will start with the newest member of the team, Jameson.
I guess I am. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jameson Pfister. I'm the Assistant Director of Operations. This is a nice little slide we have of the tonnage that we receive on the left here. We receive approximately 854,000 tons per year. That equates to approximately 2,800 tons per day. And as you can see, the landfill is the one that receives most of that, which is approximately 67% of our total tonnage coming from the Cape. Municipal solid waste, basically. So on the right, you'll see another graph that details our transactions. So we're a 6-day-a-week operation. And during that time, over the course of 2024, we received 244,000 transactions, or approximately 800 transactions per day. And the bulk of that split between the transfer, landfill, and the organics.
Yeah, Gina, just, yeah, go ahead.
What's a transaction? Like, what would you define a transaction as being?
Transaction being those that are coming through the gate, is that?
Yep.
Yeah. People who
Scale
get
house.
yeah.
Okay,
The
so
scale rate adjacent to
it's
here.
like an individual
Yes.
or a.
Individual, commercial customers, everybody that's coming through the gate,
Okay, thank you.
all materials.
And then just real quick, you said transfer was about 45%. Can you define what transfer is?
I will, I'll jump right in.
Okay.
The transfer component is where we have public users that we want to keep away from the big transfer trucks and the hauling trucks. So we send them into a section of the material recycling facility, and we use that for a transfer point to keep public users that are in small vehicles, maybe not prone to all the regulations, rules that occur at the top of the landfill. They unload in a safe zone, we reload it, and then we take it up to the landfill. So they're working tandemly. And again, as I mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, is landfill sees a significant amount of the volume. But MRF employees see a majority of the customers, about 500 of the 800 a day are being processed through the MRF. We try to get all the material segregate, manages the recyclables in those piles. Whatever is residual or trash gets shipped up to the top. So we're using it as a transfer point.
Can you tell us about the Don Chapin slice of that pie? So the Don Chapin slice of the pie is concrete. So what he does up in the concrete recycling facility is, if you remember back to my report, there was a area that said concrete recycling. So what Don Chapin does is, they crush the rock. They bring in a concrete crusher. And they crush the rock and turn it into base rock, which gets used in roads. So it's really concrete. But that's coming in. That's coming in scale.
Yes.
And are they bringing that in? No, so customers who have construction and demolition debris, say you want to expand your house or you want to demolish the sidewalks, change it. That material gets segregated as concrete, comes in at $1 per ton. So that's just a part of the landfill. No, actually, it gets recycled, right? But it's their space on your property.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just stuff covered. It's not really his waste. It's his spot in the facility.
And with that too, we beneficially reuse some of that concrete because we have to be prepared for the winter time and sweat. We got to keep our customers coming in. We don't, the collections, we're post collections here at this facility, so if we can't get our customers to the working area of the landfill, you know, the garbage doesn't stop, so we got to build roads with that concrete, and so we get to beneficially reuse that, build roads and other tipping pads and all that such that we can get our customers in and out safely, so.
Good.
Any more questions? We're good, okay. So this next slide, I'll start with a story. So I grew up in Santa Cruz and my dad's a concrete contractor and he used to load me up very high with my little Ford Ranger pickup and I used to go to Buena Vista. I used to go to Buena Vista landfill and be like, I will never work at a dump. Smells. And why are all these people like right next to the heavy equipment scavenging for the stuff? This is crazy. So the key point here is a landfill is not a dump. It's actually a highly engineered structure that's heavily regulated from the groundwater to the air and everything in between. Additionally, it's a very dynamic environment that's receiving hundreds of customers daily. And so the number one goal and value of this facility is to keep our employees and the customers safe. So some of the highlights for 2024 with the landfill group is right off the bat, we had a merger between the landfill heavy equipment operators and the site maintenance department. So in the past, they'd operated more separately, even though the site maintenance had been in a very much support role for them. What we did is we merged the group to think about the future of this facility. And that allows us to do some cross-discipline training, build other operators up to get the experience to eventually work in the garbage. It also helped boost morale. That way we could get people to take the time off that they wanted. So we had, with that cross-discipline training, people were able to take the time off and just overall team-oriented concept out in the field because there was that divide. And so it's been working very well, and the team has been empowered to speak up and ask questions and be much more proactive in their day-to-day operations and look out for one another. The landfill also has had a increased collaboration between engineering and the operations department. The landfill is a beast out there. It overlaps with a lot of other groups, as we've just heard from Felipe and David. The MRF also has a piece in that with the transfer, those that are dumping and then being hauled up by the MRF up to the landfill. So it's very important because, as I opened up with, the landfill is a highly regulated environment. Engineering is kind of the one overseeing the compliance and dealing with all the reports, but a lot of what's going on in the field is done by us in the operational level. Another key highlight was the landfill module 7 was constructed. This is a big deal because if you guys had seen during your photo op, that mound out there is actually the landfill. And so we've currently filled to the north, and as we've continued to go up in elevation, it's getting tighter and tighter for our customers again. So that space is very important for us to be able to access in spring, and David and his team are working diligently to get the final approvals from the water board that does the ultimate final approval for the ability for us to go down in there and begin fill sequencing. That will then allow us to fill and then eventually tie in that mound that you see out here and give us several years of fill area. But I know David and his team are already working on and looking at the future construction of Mod 8 because, again, garbage never stops. So also another area highlighted in this 2024 year is a focus on compliance. We're California, so the federal government, the EPA sets the minimum standard, but California's usually goes above and beyond. We were just on a call for this very topic, actually surface emissions, and CARB, California Air Resources Board, is looking to make it even more stringent. So we've been out front. Just 2 quarters ago, we had 33 exceedances on our surface emission. And we have challenges out here because our cover uses sand. Sand's very porous, and that, as I said, the landfill is very highly engineered. There's a vacuum system on it that's pulling the gas, but cover can also affect and allow gas migration. So sand's going to be a challenge for us, but we recognize as the team has come together, areas of concern, they speak up. And so we've gone from 33 exceedances in Q2 of 2024 to the next quarter, we only had 3, and ultimately we had 0 in Q4 of 2024, and we are scheduled to have Q1 of 2025 coming up, and hopefully we'll continue that momentum. The team's working really hard out there and doing a good job working together. Another highlight is introduction of drone technology. The engineering team has done a tremendous job of developing this program and is very proactive on a monthly basis, flying the drone to survey the landfill and identifying areas of compliance, areas of concern. We work really closely together, addressing those promptly. So we've had, obviously, monthly we receive visits by the LEA, and typically she's leaving here with no areas of concern. So Additionally, with the drone technology, it allows us to meet with the engineering team and go over field sequencing and just take much more of a proactive approach in our field sequencing. And then the other area that Regen has invested heavily in is the GPS. As you've heard, that the landfill is a 100+ year basically construction site. And with this technology, we have basically real-time construction. It allows our operators to be more proactive in their approach, ask questions, and make sure that we're constructing per our designs that engineering has established for us. So here's a couple photos that I will just describe here. This is in between kind of really I think near the entrance, and that excavator is just set up below the entrance with to the landfill. It looks like it's doing some excavation work. Air is also a big deal. You can see there's a stream of water behind it. They're probably dealing with some dust control and also helping with compaction. That funky looking machine just to the right of the excavator is a sheep foot rolling compactor. And then down below in the bottom of the cell, it looks like the haul truck is towing something. You can see the circular motion that they're doing some sort of excavation. Usually when they do these max excavation, you leave it a little bit, if you will, fat, because you want to just be able to scrape off. You don't want to be in the business of importing back in. It's just a lot more work that way. So then they can just take the material up and it really just speeds up the construction process. This next slide is a very good overall view. This shows kind of our landfill operations and the cell construction all at once. The black plastic on top of mod 7 there, closest to us in that picture, is what they call a scrim. I don't know why they call it scrim, but it's what it's called. It's basically allows for separation of the stormwater runoff and the leachate. Leachate's a lot of other landfills I've worked at is a huge management expense. So the less stormwater you have infiltrating into the landfill, the less costs that are associated with managing that aspect of the business. So you can see they hadn't quite finished rolling out the scrim because to the right of that, the cell 7 extends. But then you can also see the main access road there in the middle, very maybe you can see there's a customer that's exiting. We have the nice road so they can get in and out. We have barricades because safety is our #1 value. So make sure that our customers are not, they have proper lane designation and safety barricades to make sure that nobody's driving off, because you can see that as we go up, we build this landfill in lifts. And you can kind of depict that in this picture. You can see some of the other customers. At the very top there, you see some stage material, our ADC alternative daily cover for covering the landfill. And then there's our customers there. And then obviously we have our mobile windscreens in place to capture the litter. So it stays on our property. We have many challenges with that because of our elevation now. We have the Salinas River just to the north of us. And it's part of our permits. We have to maintain our landfill, and windblown litter is always a challenge for us out here. The next slide is just a really good overall slide of, although the scrim looks to be completely installed, you can see how close our operation is to the actual construction. What you see there on the right is our scraper. Likely we were there in mod 6 is where he's coming from, and hauling cover to that area. And we have what's called the first line defencing right there. That's the T-post just with some cattle fencing to capture the windblown litter, because we had to get down in there, the airspace, at the same time that they were doing construction. And obviously we have to make sure that no windblown litter is going into the construction zone. And so you can see that there's always challenges out here. We have a very nice slope right there between the two cells. You can see some of the little marks. There's some white posts, if you will, sticking up on that slope about mid-slope. That's indicative of a landfill gas header line that's running through that area. So obviously it's important to know where those pipes are at. And then all those little white dots at the top, I call those flying rats, those are seagulls. They're not as majestic as you see in paintings and all that, these nice art galleries, they like to eat garbage, so, yeah, so those are actual seagulls right there, so. We do have bird abatement and we do have a falconer on site, the falconer service. That helps keeps the seagulls out of the garbage as best we can because they do pose like in environmental health and safety factor to our customers and our employees, so. The next slide, we're gonna go into landfill gas to energy, so the first word there is a key word, is the landfill gas, so. Landfill gas is generated at the landfill, basically, it's, the landfill receives garbage and within about 6 months to a year, you will have the garbage go from an aerobic with the presence of oxygen to an anaerobic condition. And with that, you have bacteria and microbes that are reacting and digesting, and with that, they emit gas, and we capture that. And that is directed to 2 facilities over here, either the flare or the landfill gas to energy plant. Ideally, the landfill gas to energy plant, because we're generating revenue from that facility. But with that, the fuel source to these engines that are producing the power is the landfill gas. So with that, there are emissions. So again, another facility at this facility that is highly regulated. And the good news is we have a very good team over there that's properly maintaining the engines. And I'm happy to report that all 4 engines recently passed the air district's emission testing. So we're maintaining our equipment, doing everything right, and being proactive in maintaining those engines and doing good by the environment. This department has faced its challenges because of personnel. We had for a long time, just 2, basically a supervisor and a lead mechanic over there that really stretch because this facility is a 24/7. We want to be producing power there 24/7. So that being said, there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon for this group. First off, we're going to look to expand the management of the gas extraction system. Currently, we have a contractor on site doing most of the work, such as well raises, modifications, and management of our sumps. So we'd like to take some more of that in-house. We've hired a power systems manager who's got he's very talented, Tom Easton. He's got a very good background in the maintenance side, as well as he's been a field guy for much of his career. So the goal is to take much of the aforementioned work and do that in-house. And with him, he will add a lot of strength into the engine room and as well into the field. And then lastly, we recently hired 2 technicians to help with the existing 2 supervisor and the manager to help with the runtime and also develop that team to assist with the landfill operations team to do well raises, do modifications to the piping on the landfill and such. So that will allow me to transition to the MRF manager, David Salcido.
Everyone, good morning. All right, so I'm here to talk a little bit about MRF, just a quick overview. When I say quick, it's pretty quick. First of all, I wanted to touch base on the Z-wall here. So we made a lot of changes to this. A lot of the safety, as you can see, the rails, they're all new signs, and we even got a little place for them to await their customers, which they had about 28,000 that came through in 2024. We've also given them new hours from 8 to 4. And this has improved the customer service that we have over there, as well as contamination that we were getting in those boxes. And And that has helped us to actually direct bail the material that comes through there instead of running it over the line for less added cost. Some of the other stuff that we've done is resurface and the construction of, or the resurfacing of the construction and demolition tip area, which is our CND area. We added a concrete pad along with an epoxy to, basically, it's just taking care of the concrete, so that the concrete doesn't wear out, and gives it, extends the life of it. A lot of what we do in the MRF, as we run probably about 5,000 tons of single stream and about another 6,000 tons that come in through the CND site on a monthly basis. So we have a lot of cross training for our MRF employees so that they're able to do a lot of the job functions that we have. In case something goes down, we're able to move all our employees to different areas so that we're able to keep on running. And it allows us to have more run time and less downtime. We were seen by RRS, which is to help them with best management practices. A lot of what they were looking at is our daily operation and how we run and maintain and process our material and how we keep track of it. They were really impressed. So that went well. They were here for about 2 days, oversaw over the whole plant, from startup to the end. Not much else to tell them. Let's see. And then our MRF maintenance, as you can see, we're able to have 90% uptime, which is about 10% downtime, which exceeds the industry standard, which is great. We have about 9 maintenance employees that most of them come in at the end of the shift, once our operations is done. And they'll process PMs on a daily basis. They go through about 60 PMs a month, aside from any repairs that they have to do that come up on a daily basis through our operation. Pictured here is a cylinder that we had to go out and we had to replace and order that came from Germany. It took about 2 weeks to get here. But when it finally came in, it was about 8 o'clock at night. Our maintenance team was here and ready to install. This is a huge cylinder and it took a lot of work to get it in there. But they were able to process. They told us, they bring everybody in at 5 AM, we'll have it ready. And we wouldn't say it was 5, but it was close enough. But they did have it ready, and right after that, our operations team took over and processed probably for the next 2 weeks, as long as we could, to get the material that we had stockpiled outside processed through our system there. But after that, everything has ran well. The cylinder's still up and running. And it'd be nice to get a second baler. Since we don't have one. Throw that in there, you know? But yeah, I mean, like I said, we have a great both operational and maintenance team, and they both work hand in hand. One can't do the things that the other one can, and they really do help each other out and keep us running at all times. The maintenance software that we use is Nimble, and it helps us keep track of our costs, our maintenance, parts, inventory, and it helps us create our PMs that they're able to use to keep them on schedule, so that every piece of equipment is basically serviced in a 3-month period. So, I mean, that's it, unless we have any questions.
No, but I do want to add a comment. I think David is pretty modest of his team. They work extremely hard. If you take a glance out the window or on your way out, during that 10% of downtime, they managed to re-landscape their whole material recycling facility areas. You'll see it's raw. Those guys did it in between tasks. So they take a lot of pride in what they do. When the baler went down, I think it's really significant for us to really understand when we can't process material, we gotta send it to someone else. and we gotta pay for it to get processed. We also realized that in a 10-day period, we ran out of space. We had recycling piled up to the edges of that MRF facility on both sides. And then the adventure of getting up and running, you know why they came in at 8 o'clock at night, so we could be up and running that next morning. And then they diligently worked, and in about a month's time, had processed all the material that had been stockpiled. So hats off to David and the team. I think he's very, always modest in his approach, but really, really good job with the MRF detail, David. Thank you very much.
So you said 28,000 in 2024, 28,000.
Customers that came through the Z-Wall.
Okay, in comparison to 2023, I'm just curious what.
You know what, we weren't keeping track of it at that time, and there wasn't a scale house attendant that we had there. You know, there was a lot of material that was coming through that was. When it would come through, we would have to rerun that material, separate it out, and there was a lot of stuff that shouldn't have been in there that was going in there. And there was probably a lot of customers that shouldn't have been dumping in there that were. So, in the beginning of, or towards the end of 2023, we decided to.
So
Put the customer.
to add a little bit of context for Director Barber is, we really evaluated that drop off area for free public drop off. We looked at it and says, aren't we doing that on the backside? Some of us nodded our head, and we started inviting more feedback. We realized that we wanted to collect data, so Jay, took it upon the operation to say, let's start getting a tally. How much are we seeing per day? How much are we seeing per week? The team really had this battle of concept, move it to the back and eliminate that drop off area. But 28,000 is significant because that means we have to shove 28,000 on top of the 800 a day. We realized that there was issues along the way, the contamination, the customer abuse, like I'll just go and throw my 2 bags of garbage at the same time and I'm out of here. That wasn't really being managed very well. So we were able to collect the data. We made a very informed decision. And it came down to some dialogue from our supervisor that it's been here for a long time. It was an opportunity to engage with the customers on what is and what isn't recyclable. So we decided to put a lot of effort into it. The board acknowledged our position. We redid the Z-wall barriers. We put in a little scale attendant. Now we can address questions. We can track the data. And we were really excited that we made the right decision. It's being highly used. And we didn't have to punish the scale house attendants to differentiate what was free and what was a cost. Now it goes through a process, they dump off all the free, get back in line and dump the cost off after. So it was a good process and a good exercise for all the levels of team to really analyze, plan, collect data and make an informed decision for the best outcome. But very good question on the situation.
And the direct bailing is actually a huge plus, because it's not material that has to be run over the line again.
Yeah, it works very well.
Yeah.
I think the education behind it, like, Felipe's already kind of alluded to, makes a difference. I've used it.
Yeah.
And I can see the difference,
Yeah.
even in that time. between-
Yeah, well, one person does, and it's like I tell everybody here, this is a team effort, if one person comes here by themselves, they won't get nothing done. But all of us together, this is what happens.
Exactly, great work.
And that's a David comment often is together we can do anything. By ourselves is really difficult to accomplish. So he always carries that positive attitude. See a question from Director Burns?
Are there plans for another baler to be added?
I hope so.
Yeah, additional baler is not just purchase a new baler. There's a lot of engineering that has to happen. So we have to look at a design where we could have 2 functional balers to improve the operation. And then we have to have the ability to pivot when one goes out is how do we make that the primary and make those changes? So we gotta look at the plan, create the design, and then we can implement the second baler. And I think the board was very supportive on achieving it, but we don't want to procure it before we know how we're gonna utilize it and where it would be put. But great question on
Yeah, and
the additional baler.
it does have to work for us all, I mean, as much as I wanted. But it does have to work for everything, I mean, like I said, it does help when it's down, but like I said, this is like, it's never happened before to be down for 2 weeks, so. I mean, I understand that we do have a little bit of downtime, because once we get full, and we only have 1 baler. and process it all at the same time, but we make it work as best as we can.
Since you're doing direct to bale, now that could be a bigger problem, the more material comes in that way.
Well, again, during our downtime, we take advantage of it, as much as we hate having the downtime, but we know it's all of a sudden downtime, switch gears. Let's get something else done that we didn't have.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then we also, like I said, we schedule some of our time that we know that we're gonna be off to bring some people in a little bit later when we're not operating and we can direct bail the stuff that we have to.
You're really running your own business there.
Yeah, we have to,
Pretty-
yeah, we have to, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right. Listen.
All right, again, my name is Jameson Pfister, Assistant Director of Operations, and this slide is dedicated to our household hazardous waste. So I've worked at many different landfills and been to many in the state of California, and Regen is very unique in that we offer a wide ranging of services to our customers. I've been to many facilities that have either a weekly or a monthly household hazardous waste, and we are fortunate enough to provide a service 6 days a week to our customers, and that's really huge because as you can see, 60% of the household products that are dropped off to the household waste are reusable. So customers are dropping off different types of cleaners, solvents, fluids, other things that, and in this hazardous, right? So we're a class 3 landfill, maybe class 2, but household hazardous waste and hazardous materials are not permitted to be disposed of in this landfill. And as you will talk a little bit further down in this slide, they can create all kinds of reactions that can lead to potentially dangerous situations. So, and as I said, those reusable materials are made available to the public. So we've partnered with the LCM and we have a nice bin over there that customers that are doing and shopping at the retail outlet can also go through there and grab materials that they can use at home for cleaning, different types of other activities. We learned that this is not the revenue generating facility like others here, but the public ed and others are doing a very good job of going out and getting grant money. So we've got a Cal Recycle grant for $50,000, which will go towards improvements at this facility. And more importantly, it will help expand the battery collection sites and outreach in the community. So for the new directors, I don't know if you've seen our commercial that we produced with the help of really the whole team, the whole Regen team, led by the communications and public outreach department, but it's a big deal because in the landfill, tying back to the landfill, those batteries make it in the landfill, which twice this week it has, and we send the first team notifications, work with safety manager Anthony Martin, the has been very good at getting well versed in all these facilities, but we had one video, it was reacting and causing explosions as the operator got out of the piece of equipment. It was literally exploding. And so we quickly react, we cut out the area where it's reacting and on fire, we smother it, douse it, do everything to be safe. Sometimes we're able to collect the battery kind of thing, and then we dispose of it at HHW2. So the more we can get to our customers or the public, the better, because this battery is definitely a safety hazard for our employees and the customers that are utilizing the landfill because of their reactivity and the potentials for fires there. And should they propagate, we also have a landfill gas system out there, so it could get really, it's very dangerous potentially. And with that being a 6-day-a-week operation, we still get 40+ customers a day, so it's just a really nice service to have for our customers in the community. So
What kind of battery would that be?
it's I think mainly the lithium ion rechargeable batteries, so people don't think that even your small rechargeable toothbrush has a battery there that you can recharge You just discarded that, even though it's small, it's like, oh, what could happen? A lot can happen out here with those types of batteries. So with that, I will be transitioning off to Efrain Lopez, the maintenance manager.
Good morning. Okay, emergency for the I won't be as entertaining as David did. I'll do my best. Down at the shop, we have a great group of guys that really work hard to make, the landfill and the whole region function. I mean, we touch on, all the equipment is related to the shop. Every department has a piece of equipment that we service. So down at the shop, we have increased the scope and focus of the heavy equipment repair to better serve our internal customers. By providing efficient and effective heavy equipment repair. To increase equipment uptime and availability. As part of our commitment, we have expanded the second shift by adding a supervisor and a technician. We also have developed a technician training program. And to allow the lower level tech twos an opportunity to train and gain valuable skills. To be able to promote to a journey level tech 3. And as some of you may know, or most of you may know, as mandated by the California Resources Board, we have been replacing non-compliant equipment. And as of today, we have spent $11.5 million to replace 23 pieces of non-compliant equipment. We also have begun to electrify the fleet. We have transitioned to electric forklifts, and we added our first EV pickup truck. As we continue this transition, we remain committed to efficiency, reliability, and safety. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
How many years have you been doing with the California Air Resource Board?
The
85%.
past 5 years.
5 years.
Efrain mentioned the last time,
Again?
the zero last time.
Oh, I forgot to mention the most important part. The zero last time. We have worked 9 years with zero last time accidents. So actually since 2016, we haven't had a last time accident.
Good.
With the electrification and, because we see this, and we do this a lot, even with the city, and, but what's their maintenance for that?
It's all new. So as of right now, everything's under warranty. So for right now, the dealers will take care of it.
Okay,
And as we expand, we will get some input from them as to what the basic maintenance is gonna be. Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
On the electrification of the fleet, are we applying for, any of the grants that the, local air district has for?
We have not.
electrification?
We have not applied for any of those because, that was not, I don't think that we met the requirements. If I remember right, Tim Flanagan,
We have first pre-CE and we didn't meet some
yeah, we don't meet the requirements.
criteria.
Okay, we should let them know what our criteria we need them to set to have. First, and then also we should check in with Bridge 7 and Embark, because we also have Embark electrification for fleet that are targeted for other local government agencies for fleet electrification. And I think one of the things we're really trying to showcase is that it is possible to have this type of like pickup truck, forklift, as electric options. And there's a lot of pushback sort of on the commercial side, on the public sector commercial side. So if we're in a position to be able to showcase that this is possible and how it's possible, I think there would be interest and a desire to not just have us utilize it on the electric side, but to have that be showcased as, look at what we're doing and how electric vehicles can meet this type of heavy machinery for purposing.
There is a cost saving as we produce our own power, so by doing so, you know, we can alleviate some of the costs related with the propane.
Yeah, thank you.
Have the vehicles been as good and effective? with-
We haven't had it that long to know. Right now, our EV's in the shop for charging issue, and parts are not really available. So it's taking a little bit longer to get it back, but gotta work through all those. All right. Any other? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just would like, I guess my story wasn't as funny as David, but I didn't open it up to any questions about the landfill, if you guys had any questions or. Did no need to circle back? Once, twice, we're good, okay.
It's not. Since I have been here, the site has gone through several changes. The photos and data don't do it justice. Please reach out to Zoe's team if you want a tour of your facilities. On behalf of the operations team, we want to thank the board for their support.
But the operations team, they don't get a whole lot of reps of doing these kind of presentations. I think they knocked it out of the park. Points to the collaboration that we have. Jameson mentioned the collaboration between the engineering and operations team. And that really is showing and improving throughout the facility with working on everything. And they push us in the engineering department to come up with solutions, as like David mentioned, you need a second trailer, you said? Second trailer? Oh, okay. I said trailer. We can do that. I've heard about a second baler a couple of times, so they're pushing us forward and making sure that we have the solutions for them to do their job. And, you know, this is, the guy looks familiar. We're out there in the field talking with operations, working side by side with them. And it's been really a pleasure. Nobody thinks they're gonna go into waste because Jameson mentions, but it's outstanding. I love it. So we're gonna talk about the engineering department, and the engineering department has had a number of wins throughout the past few years, and it's really in conjunction with the wins they've had out there at the landfill, MRF, the shop, and the HHW. So in the last year, we've gone through a transition, my position, the Director of Engineering and Compliance. The previous Director of Engineering went through a retirement, and I transitioned into his role. So we've had to do transitions of projects, of outlook of where we're going. We've also started to come to the completion of Module 7, which is a big step for the organization to secure additional fill capacity. And compliance. We are constantly taking data, analyzing that data, and then making reports to a whole alphabet soup of regulatory organizations: Monterey County Health, Monterey Bay Area Resources District, Central Coast Water Board, EPA, CalRecycle. These are all agencies that come into our facility multiple times a year to check up that we're doing everything correctly. We also self-report a lot of our data. We're working on a Title V report, which has taken our team quite a bit of time, but it's all a book of data that we gotta submit to those regulators. With recognition of everything that we're doing and the future of Regen, we've onboarded a new assistant engineer role and done a promotion of our previous assistant engineer to associate engineer. Shout out to Katie back there. Good. Working with her. Also, we've managed to get the LOCI system, which you guys saw at the last board meeting. Really proud of this organization for doing that. It's a very, very big step forward to make us a world-class landfill. And that's a badge we can wear with a lot of honor, because it really is a big step. As part of that collaboration between operations, we've rolled out a compliance tool, which is called Mapistry. And it really, it's a calendar, a task list, a to-do list that we can share that information with the operations team to make sure compliance issues get addressed. And it's been an onboarding, so staff that hasn't used technology in the past is now starting to transition into using it. And I really thank the operations team for helping us make that organizational change. Yes, sir.
For the new people, can you tell us about that pilot study, the LOCI?
The LOCI system, yeah, it just happened, so it's pretty new. What we have at the landfill, you can see, this is an example here. So this is a landfill gas well. where we extract the gas from the landfill. Prior to installing the low C system, you had a manual valve here, so you could adjust the vacuum. How much vacuum you're pulling the gas, how strongly you're pulling the gas out of the system. And we would adjust that very infrequently, about once a month, maybe a couple times a month, if that. 100 of these on the landfill. This low C system, which is a automated well control valve, which samples the gas, makes a decision on if it's within the parameters we want it to be in, and then adjusts the valve accordingly so that real-time data, you have real-time adjustments of the valve level, and you get better quality gas. You get more gas because you're able to change the vacuum pressure based on barometric pressure. So these are going to be get installed on 100 of the wells that we have. The pilot study was only about a dozen of the, or 20 wells that got this on. Now we're going to expand it to the full facility, and it's something the board can be really proud about delivering. It just got approved last month. Yes.
On that subject, what kind of payback do you get on that investment?
The payback is on the volume of gas that we're getting. So now that we're able to collect.
No, is it a positive payback? Is it costing money?
We hashed it out at the last board meeting and you weren't there. Really the payback is really difficult to say on paper because you have better gas, which means the engine plant will run better. The power production plant will run better because you're using better gas. You have less time that you have to go out to these wells and measure out the quality, the quantity of gas that you're getting. So we expect it to be operational, not necessarily like we can tie a dollar amount to say we're.
It should be better, but it won't pay for itself.
Not directly, and it's hard to quantify how much that's going to be in operational improvements. There's also a avenue for us to pursue carbon credits where we can, because we're going above and beyond that threshold of compliance, we're getting more gas. We can apply to get carbon credits, which we can sell to other entities.
Then that also be all factored into the big project, I would think.
It is factored in there. Yeah, it does take some decisions and some reporting to be able to qualify for those credits. But that's something we'll bring back to the board. And shout out to Rocio. That's Rocio, our environmental technician. She's collecting a water sample there to report to the water board. Engineering department also launched the facilities maintenance wing. Prior to this, the operations team was not only in charge of picking litter on the landfill, but they were also taking part in fixing doors, in painting damage to walls, patching holes, etc. That really isn't where we can get the best value out of our ops staff. They're professionals and experts in the landfill and those facilities. So we brought the maintenance of the facilities into engineering, and we're now we're managing that maintenance piece and then fixing deferred maintenance items that the organization and the facility needs. We also finished a joint feasibility study between Regen and Monterey One Water, where we looked at the value of the gas that we're producing here at Regen, and also how organics could be used to their best potential. And so we delivered that study as part of Guide. Thank you to Guide. Katie O'Connor, who I mentioned before, became a licensed professional engineer, so congratulations. Katie O'Connor, PE. Good job. As well as she became a drone pilot, so really excited about that. And just I hope operations tools we're releasing for the ops staff, as I mentioned. Jameson mentioned the GPS, low C system, the drone program. All really exciting things to see this transition go forward. Engineering team also worked with a number of researchers at the facility. We've worked with UC Berkeley and with UC Davis. UC Davis is here right now, taking measurements on the landfill. And we're really excited to be a research facility where universities can come and vet out some of the assumptions that have been made on emissions calculations, on efficiency of landfills and their gas extraction system. It's really exciting that they're able to see the facility before we install this low C system and then see the facility after. We think this is where regulations are gonna take us regardless of if we want to or not. They're gonna be more highly regulating facilities like ours. And then we also had a white paper, which if for the new board members, this describes the economy or the marketplace of waste and how these different wastes travel over jurisdictional boundaries because of where the facilities are located. So it's a really good read, to get some background on some of the decisions Regen has made in the past and why that's a very common thing to happen in the waste industry, just in general. So I recommend that as a read. With that, I will answer any questions that anyone may have on engineering or pass it on to finance.
I'd just like to let the audience know and the public know that's online. We really want to finish at 12. We have 2 more presenters. We're very close. I'd like to make my commitment and end this at 12 o'clock. So we're gonna try to get through these last remaining slides and conclude our presentation from today's workshop. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Directors. I'm Helen Rodriguez, Director of Finance and Administration, and this next section will hopefully be the highlight of your training today. You know, finance is not usually the most exciting part. What you have here, this is our scale house, the temporary scale house that you see, the portables out there. And that is Jessica Ariella, our scale house supervisor, and Yesenia, who's the lead scale weighmaster. So the highlights for the finance and administration, this from 2022 to 2024. One of the things that Garth Gregson here, who's our accounting manager back in the back, he created standard operating procedures for the finance team, which are the major functions for the finance, which is accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll. So they created desk procedures and standard operating procedures for the finance team. One of the things that he also has worked on is the creation of a purchase requisition system. So we didn't have that before. So now anything over $500 goes through a purchase requisition and it's approved. So therefore the accounts payable knows there's an invoice coming in and it has been approved and it's ready to pay once they receive the invoice. We also implemented positive pay because we've had several instances where we've had fraudulent checks go through our account. And so we've implemented positive pay, not only on the dollar amount, but also on the pay. So that was them. And in coordination with the board last month, we in January, we implemented a process to pay down the $19.5 million of unfunded actuarial liability for CalPERS, and that's $500,000 to be paid in addition to the UAL, annual UAL in January. So the goal is to pay it down within the next 10 years. And then in collaboration with engineering, we created the closure and post-closure reserve, and board passed this. And just as a reminder, it was $500,000, $550,000 annually for the closure and $200,000 for the post-closure. And that will be for the next 10 years, and then it will be reviewed in the 11th year to see where we're at, to see if we have to adjust that reserve. So some of the highlights for the scales is you can see 244,000 transactions in 2024, roughly 800 transaction per day. That's 800 vehicles going through the scale house per day. One of the things they're really proud about is that the Waymasters, all Waymasters have their flagger certificate. Many of you recall when we would have long lines and we couldn't get someone from operations to come and help us manage. So they transitioned and got their flagger certificate. Now they can control traffic, not only within the facility, but they can also control it outside of the facility. So I'm really proud of them for doing that. All 6 of them have their certification. We also have the scale house remodel. They've successfully moved to the 2 portable temporary scales building there. And in the old building, we only had 3 windows to service. We have now transitioned to 5 windows, which will be the new, when the remodel is done, the new scale house will have the capability of also having 5 windows. And that's anticipated to be completed this March. So we're looking forward to that. And the staff is excited to move back to a permanent location and one that's a little more convenient for them to navigate on. The administration side, you can see Ida back there and Anna, who's out in our front desk. They implemented the eScribe program software, which is what we use for the board meetings and all our board reports that we send out to all of you. And we revised and implemented a new phone tree. And the reason we did that was all the calls, about 90% of the calls were being directed to the scale house, where you can imagine the scale house trying to answer the phone and trying to answer customers at the same time. So we reorganized that phone tree so that they can get directly to the department or to wherever they want to end up going for their questions. And then one of the projects we started is for record retention. We started scanning all the documents for archiving, and we're also looking at our records management system at this point. And with that is the highlights. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take it. All right, I'm transition to summary.
Helen, I just have one question, actually. The 800 transactions per day, and that was referenced in a previous slide too. I think this also gets to sort of one of our larger issues. Those are local transitions, those are local residents that are coming.
It's everything.
It's everything.
It's everything. It's franchise haulers, it's personal ways.
Percentage-wise, do we have a sense of percentage wise?
Yes,
How many of those would be local?
yeah, it's probably, you know, the ones who come from San Jose, they're bringing transfer trailers.
Big, large?
Big, large
Yeah.
vehicles, so I would say it's 10-20% maybe is the offsite stuff. Because they're coming in one transaction with
A large
a semi truck
tonnage.
worth of waste. The real bulk of transactions are, we call mom and pop pickup truck and trailer that are very small loads, but very numerous.
Right.
And I don't know if we have more detail on that pie chart that's there, but we can break it down a
Yeah.
little better.
I mean, the pie chart kind of gets at that, right? It's like saying our tonnage is like half of our tonnage is from San Jose, but the transactions really are the small, like me dropping off the little batteries that I have, or, you know, stopping by and be like, oh, hey, here's the, you know, bulky thing that I, you know, needed to drop off. And this is where my local spot is, so.
Yeah, I would say about 500 of that small private public drop off, and then about 300 of those transactions a day are probably gonna be your big trucks, commercial haulers.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Transitioning over to communications. My name is Zoe Schultz. I'm the Director of Communications here at Region Monterey. And I took aim at one thing that Jay said. He said he gets to do all the fun stuff. I think they have all the hard work. So they have the lion's share of the work, but I think we get to do all the fun stuff in communications. And much more. So
I'll dive right in addition to, getting to tell the amazing stories of this organization, one thing we do is help implement legislation for your local member agencies. And, in the last few years, really 5 years, because there was a lot of planning, we implemented SB 1383, which is California's short-lived climate pollution reduction strategy, a mouthful. But that's the law that says that your food scraps, most people think of it as food scraps going in the new organics cart, which is the green cart where your yard trimmings go. And I'm with a broken record about SB 1383, you'll hear me talk about it a lot. But that was one of the main elements of the law. There are other elements of the law, such as edible food recovery, making sure that food that is still edible gets to people who are hungry in our community that need it. There's a lot of education and outreach, obviously, with getting people to make a big behavior change, to make sure those organics are not going into our landfill and producing methane, but are instead turning into rich compost. And then there's a lot of monitoring, reporting, and enforcement. So Regen Monterey handles a lot of that for your member agencies. And we do so through a technical advisory committee. And I'll report on a monthly basis to the board about the activities of the technical advisory committee. The technical advisory committee is composed of, as Felipe mentioned earlier, us as the processor and 3 haulers in our service area and all 9 member jurisdictions represented by staff. And we really work collaboratively to make sure that the way that the law is being implemented works for everyone. So there's a lot of really seasoned people that are in that meeting on a monthly basis. And we also have joined forces with Salinas Valley Recycles. And we make sure that we can have programs that can be implemented consistently countywide and be spoke about consistently countywide, because we know a lot of people live in one city and they work in another. So that's one of the great things that we've accomplished as a technical advisory committee. And all of this sharing with Salinas Valley Recycles also helps to reduce our costs, because we can implement joint programs that are also countywide programs. So again, saving the member agencies money on the implementation of some of these massive laws. Next thing I'll talk about, in 2022, we rebranded to Regen Monterey. That was one of the most fun things our department has had a chance to tackle. Like I said, we get to tell the stories of this organization, and we really realized that the previous brand was, one, a mouthful, 2, confusing as compared to who does what between waste management and our organization, waste management being the collection agency. So we rebranded to Regen Monterey, which is a new brand that better reflects the vast services that we have to offer here, like the Disneyland worth of services that we have to offer here. And we are actively working with all of these different departments to reduce waste towards zero. That's part of our new hope for this organization and hope for the community that we bring. So that brand got implemented on our website and social media, vehicle decals, stationery, signage, PowerPoints, all of the above. And it's still a little bit of work in progress. We have signage coming soon that'll be across our whole site. So that'll be something new to help direct folks and hopefully make it easier for them to utilize our site. Along with the rebrand, we have Eric Palmer handling our social media. He's in the back here. He has really changed the strategy of our social media. In the past, we had a lot of communications about the global plastic problem and all these like massive things, climate change, like how do you tackle these massive things? But we here have a lot of very local solutions, and the services that we offer and in tandem with the community bring hope to the actions that we can make here. So through some really engaging visuals of our operations, we've been able to instill that hope and help partner with the community and tell the story in a new way. And it's all to help inspire behavior change. A new thing that you'll see coming soon within this next month, because we are in beta testing, is a whole new website. And it's going to get to one of the things that you mentioned, Wendy, which is that timeline. We will have that timeline on the new website that gets to a lot of this information about why the decisions have been made in the past and what the future is looking forward. We're also making sure that it's more customer focused. So a lot of the existing copy on our website has to do with how great we are and all the things that we've done as an organization, and we really are. But I think really what customers need to know is how to utilize our services in an easy and convenient way. So it's really more customer focused in the way that it speaks about our organization. So that will be coming soon. Curtis spoke a little bit about the revamped internal communication strategy. We have given tours to the public for many, many years, and we get to tell a great story about all of our operations. And we weren't doing so internally. So if someone was working in our scale house and they're 8 hours a day, they didn't know what was happening inside the MRF. And someone who was in the MRF didn't have a good idea of what was happening over at landfill gas. So we implemented site-wide tours and made sure that folks had a chance to really see in depth all of our operations. We've also implemented board of directors recaps, so all the decisions that your board makes, we make sure that our staff has an understanding of those changes and the way our future is looking and all of those initiatives and projects, our staff has that. Berta spoke to the general manager huddles, and we also have the break room TV screens that feature content. Schools program, we've always been engaged in the schools, but one of the new things that we have done in the last couple years is made sure that the focus is on compliance with SB 1383. Our schools are required to comply with this law as well. They don't fall under the city jurisdiction, so we give presentations and training to make sure that they are diverting the organics, and we're really teaching the youth how to have this new behavior within our households as well. So Franco Guzman, who you see over on the side here, goes into our schools and implements that training both with staff, with students, and with faculty. And that's been really successful. The students welcome him with open arms. I gave him a card this morning from one of the schools of all the students who were thanking him. One of the things we did this last year is we had a battery safety video and campaign, and I'll send that to our 2 new board members. We created about a 3-minute film about the dangers of batteries and dangers to our site, both in our material recovery facility, our MRF, and at our landfill. We have a fire week, and we want that to stop, ideally, at least decrease. I see David nodding his head, stop. So we wanted to make sure that the community knew what resources were available to place batteries at their curb or bring them to us for proper recycling. So we can reduce those fires. And you can see here, this is an example of one of our outreach events. We had a recycled cart on fire. Like, why is the cart on fire? Because those are back in there. So different ways to keep telling our story. And that was a really fun one. Lastly, Felipe touched on this. We are starting work as a technical advisory committee to prepare for 2030 with the expiration of the member agencies' agreements with either green waste recovery or Monterey disposal. So information will be coming to your staff members about that, and then we'll be feeding in, and then we'll be looking to you as elected officials as to what decisions you all want to make moving forward with either an extension or an RFP for a new franchise holder. And many more stories to tell. Happy to be able to do it. Thanks so much.
And we thank you.
All right, a recap, and I will try to keep it very, very short. Legacies and future capital projects. That portion of the presentation showed how making those decisions related to legacy and capital projects depend heavily on Regen's philosophy when it comes to financial independence. It's a big takeaway for our board today. That plan for 2036 will give Regen the direction on how to make new investments, when to make them. We can make a difference if we start our path now. Landfill life will be impacted by that pathway that we choose. Financial positions currently strong. We want it to remain strong, and I definitely want to leave it in a good financial position when I leave this organization in the future. I think everybody else here is dedicated to delivering top priority services to one another, to the public, and to the environment and everything else that comes with it. The department highlights clearly demonstrate the team is orchestrating a lot of movement to be efficient, to understand where we're at, where in our current time, where we'll be better in our future time. But sticking to the key takeaways. What do we do to bridge that revenue gap with the loss of San Jose contract in 2036? Independent or dependent, longer landfill life, shared landfill life, and then updating our guiding principles what you'll see coming shortly after is you'll start seeing these items come to our finance committee, to our personnel committee in smaller chunks and smaller increments so that we can start executing some of the strategies that we desire. So hopefully this will leave the audience, the folks that are at home watching, or maybe with our board of directors, is we gotta roll up our sleeves, be prepared to take some action and start making some decisions that will make a difference in the 10 to 11 year span that we have on a revenue goal that we're searching for. So at this time, I stand back over to the chair for any final comments.
I just want to thank you, Felipe, and your staff. I know you guys have been working so very hard on this, making this is so important. And I want to tell the directors that if, when you leave this workshop, if there's something that feels like you want more discussion, you want to go in that direction, please communicate that to Felipe and to myself. And, as Felipe said, we're gonna try and take chunks of this, but I think it's gonna take a lot of communication and we need to revisit this frequently. So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I think comments, suggestions, ideas could be vetted right through the chair and myself. And then we try to evaluate those on where's the biggest gain, where do we start first? We have a pretty good idea. We're gonna come back with traditional budget. What is our price adjustment, if any, look like this year? And then what is that path to reach some successes before we leave our positions here at Regen Monterey?
Great.
For everybody here, if you want to call the meeting to closure.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We will see you at our board meeting this month. I don't know the date, in February, it's the third Friday.